This is the March 8th Advisory Committee on Sustainability meeting, and we have a quorum and are called to order, and we'll start right away. The first item on the agenda was the February minutes, but we will put that off until later in the meeting as our secretary is not here yet. I do have a couple of announcements, so why don't I make those, and then we'll get right into the updates that we usually do, and then move on to Earth Day and Swap Shop and whatever else we can get to. We have a lot of exciting stuff going on. The first update is that the advisory committee has a new member who was appointed to the committee at the Monday night Board of Selectmen meeting. The person's name is Mohan Ganadal, and he is going to be joining at some point, although he had a prior commitment at noon, so he's going to join late. He had learned of the committee via, I think, the Board of Selectmen newsletter, and was interested and contacted the town and went through the process of referral and interviews and appointment Monday night. He does have a background in the business world and some additional higher ed in the area of sustainability and sustainable management. I think surrounding, finances and insurance and some other things like that. He can introduce himself later on. So when he joins, that's who he is, and we'll give him a chance to introduce himself towards the end of the meeting. The second, just really brief update, and it leads into the recycling updates, which is the first area of the meeting we're going to cover, is that I recently saw a notice for the 6th taxing district of Norwalk, which is Rowayton, that had advised that their property taxes would be raised by amount, or the amount in the Norwalk model that they use, by $100,000 to cover the cost of waste disposal in the Rowayton area next year. And so we keep talking at our meetings about the lack of place to deposit waste, the cost going up, the cost of fuel, the need to transport waste out of state for some communities, which is not our situation at the moment. But I just thought it was another reminder. We spoke to the RTM a month ago, on this very topic of where waste goes is something that's top of mind throughout the state. I just wanted to throw that out. So as we talk about recycling, which is one of the best ways to limit waste costs, we've got a number of activities that happen already in town. One of them, which is the swap shop, we'll get to in a minute. So in terms of 2 recycling efforts that I'll report on, and then Carolyn can talk about food scraps at the moment if there's any updates. The first is the surprise good news that the mini bottle act that was enacted in the state of Connecticut about a year ago places a 5-cent fee on the mini bottles, it's the nips, and the money is sent back to the town for use in waste reduction programs. So hello, Amanda and Christine. So the town of Darien has received, according to our finance department, our community has received over $3,000 in fees to date, with the purpose that money is to be used for recycling and waste reduction, litter reduction efforts. So we haven't spent it, we haven't made a proposal to spend it, but that is something as we look forward. We have a source of money that the town can use for some of the projects we want to work on. And that money comes twice a year, April and October. So the $3,000 that came from last April and October will have a third payment this April. So this looks like an ongoing stream, maybe $1,000 to $1,500 every 6 months. And while that does not take the bottles out of the waste stream, it does provide some way to give towns a way to do some cleanup. And the last one, I did send this to the committee, but I wanted to say it publicly, was the the machines, the us again machines, that machines or bins that we have at the dump, at the transfer station, and at the swap shop, that collect clothing, used clothing. Last year, Darien collected over 73,000 pounds of clothing, and that type of waste, clothing, sheets, towels, shoes, and we are paid at 10 cents a pound or a ton, 10 cents a pound. But it's a 7,000 over, it's about $7,300 payment back to the town of Darien, which again takes that out of our waste stream. So NIPS, we have some money. Use the tree machine, us again boxes, if you have clothing that we do not accept at the swap shop, and to keep it from going into the hopper. And then food scraps is the other one that we're kind of keeping track of right now. So I'll move on to Carolyn to report on that.
Okay, hi. I usually report on the monthly totals of the food scraps that have been diverted, and for February, it was just over 2 tons, which doesn't really sound good, but because the month before it was over 4 tons. But when I reported last month, I only had totals from December and January. I didn't have these reports that I usually get from Cindy. And when she came back, she sent me the report so I could see the breakdown by week. And actually, it's not as bad as it sounds. So it's really, it was 0.68 tons per week for the month of February. And that is a little bit lower than January and December, which is more like 0.85 tons per week, because we have the winter break in there. But I also compared it to 2022 and 2021 February, and it's on par. So it's like, it's a little bit hard to look at just the month, because depending on the weeks and how they fall, sometimes there's 4 collections, sometimes there's 3 collections, and sometimes there's 5, depending on the way the month falls. So we're kind of on a par with where we usually are. So that's the good news. But again, it could be better, and we are taking steps to try to increase that.
Thank you. Each of these may sound small, but when you start really, as I'm trying to wrap my head around this, you take the fabric, you take the food, you take what goes through the swap shop, you take these
Scrap
things,
metal.
and
Yeah.
it's all the other recycling at the transfer station. It is a significant amount that this community is already, taking the time to separate out of the trash. And the theme, I think, of all of our meetings the rest of the year are going to be how can we do even better at that. So thank you. I think that leads right into Earth Day activities and how we can use Earth Day to sort of communicate, educate, increase some of the use of the transfer station, educate on food scrap recycling, and broadly just talk about how we can do more as individuals in the community. And I know I'm going to let Carolyn and Amanda probably together, because between the magazine article, a food swap day, a food scrap morning at Whole Foods, you two are involved in that, and then I can kind of close with what we've agreed to do at the library in April as well. So Amanda, you want to start with, or wait a minute. So who's written the article? Can we talk about where the article is, and then we can talk about Whole Foods?
The article is done. As I mentioned to you, Kathy, Pam Day Vossler contacted me, and she told me what she was looking for in the article, and she wanted it to be, it's not for the our environment column, it's for the giving back column. So given that it's an April issue, she wanted the focus to be on Earth Day, and how, since we wanted to use the opportunity to further publicize the food scrap program, she thought what she wanted to see was kind of a challenge to the community to give back to Darien, because the column always focuses on how local organizations give back to the town, but she kind of wanted to turn it around and ask the community to give back. So that's sort of the introduction of the article. Then it just goes through and, kind of outlines, how people can reduce food waste. And one thing she would like is, she also asked me to do a little sidebar that would talk about what the Advisory Committee on Sustainability is. And again, this is a sidebar, so it's not comprehensive. It's just kind of an overview, and also a sidebar for how people can get dump stickers if they don't have one. So there are two sidebars, but she would also like a photo of our committee. Because as I mentioned, one of the sidebars is the Advisory Committee on Sustainability, and the article is coming out under the Advisory Committee on Sustainability. So she suggested that we take a photo at the food scrap drop off. So, maybe we can do this offline, but, sometime within the next week, if we could all get together in one place and get a photo that I can send to her, she would like that. And
Okay.
also the other thing she mentioned is, she said that the Darien magazine they're working on having they do a lot. They have a presence on social media, and she said that any events that we have coming up, she can publicize. And they're also working on a website that's going to have a town calendar. So any kind of events that are coming up that we want to publicize, she's happy to help with that.
So that would theoretically be a place to, not jumping ahead, but for example, if we have copies of this article on Earth Day at the library, it could also be she could place in her events calendar that there's a talk about
I mentioned that
collecting trash.
specifically to
Okay.
her, and she said she would be happy to.
Or relative to the food exposition morning at Whole Foods. Same thing,
Yes.
those kinds of things that
Yep.
we'll address.
Mentioned
Okay.
both of those. Yeah.
Okay. Fabulous. Okay. So, and when do we need that photo by? Just so that and then
Within
we
the
can
week.
email some dates so
Yeah.
by
Within a
by
week.
Friday or by Monday, by next Wednesday, maybe?
Yes. Let's say by next Wednesday, she would like the photo. So
Okay. So offline, we can try to find a time that would work for all of us or most of us for that kind of picture.
right.
Do
Whoever
that
can't
offline.
make it, we can say, missing is, and list the people. So
Okay.
yeah.
All
Just
righty.
FYI, I will be back in Darien Monday night.
Oh, good. Okay, Cliff, thanks. So,
So if we did it Tuesday or Wednesday, let's shoot for Tuesday or Wednesday via email, see if we can find a time. How would that be?
sounds good.
Okay.
About Wednesday at noon, since that seems to work for everybody now.
We could just do that.
Yeah,
Let me
we could
double
meet,
check.
maybe do it in front of Town Hall, in front of the flag pole or
Food
something.
scrap drop off is where she would like. We could do town hall, but because the article is focused on the food scrap program, she suggested that. And she may have a photographer who can take the picture. So depending on when it is, if not, we'll just have to find someone to do it. But
Okay, so why don't we do that then? Let's just say Wednesday at noon, which is the 15th.
15.
I know I can't make that, but go ahead.
Okay.
Oh no, Amanda, can you do a different time next Wednesday?
I could do.
Could you do Tuesday?
I could do Tuesday between noon and 3, or Wednesday morning
Okay, I'm free
before
anytime.
noon.
I can do either.
I can do either.
What about Wednesday at say 11? Would that 11, which would get you out of there, Amanda?
Yep, I could do that.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Okay, I'll double check and make sure that that's not too far. I'll make sure that that date is still acceptable for her
Okay.
publication purposes. Yeah.
Okay. So then keeping with how, Amanda, you had started this idea in writing an article and using Pam and challenging the community. So maybe it's flipped a little bit from, how we'd originally envisioned it, but it's really still the same thing, challenging the community. What can you do? And so the fact that you pursued that, and then Carolyn for, taking through some of the edits when you were away. And with that was an idea to do something on Earth Day, which is actually what, the April 22nd, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is Earth Day.
So you want to give us an update on that? And
Sure. And so, Ed, this is, if I can have your ear on this. Whole Foods has been super interested in this. In fact, I got an email just this morning and he's like, I've been thinking more about it. And what he was talking about is giving us some maybe 4 or how many ever parking spots we needed in the back by the BMW to like put up a little area where we could collect. And he's like, upon thinking about it more, I'd like us to do that more closer to the door. And, I have some staff that are interested in participating, and, we could do the large bins, which Kathy, your idea made a ton of sense. And I thought about transporting that too. Like maybe we don't want large bins. They're happy to make copies if we have copies of flyers or brochures or like tip sheets that we want to do. And then we can have our compost bins there for sale too. So what I envision, and then he's like, let's bring it closer to the door. So having a space closer to the door where we have our bins, people can bring their compost. We have our tip sheet and a piece on what our committee is. And then it'd be nice if we had like, some signage or something that kind of draws attention in. And then the question for Ed would be, when we collect these, can we bring, like, obviously I can put them in my car and bring them because I have a dump sticker. One better would be if they just had the public works truck, go over there and pick them up at the end of the session and take them over in one scoop. That would be my ask. But I think it's exciting and that Whole Foods wants to get in on this, and this guy's pretty motivated and interested. I would like to see, my ask for him would be, is he willing to either display our compost bins for the month with a little sign of here's where you can get them, or is it something we could actually sell there? It might get into an issue with selling them there because their computers aren't set up for that. And I don't know how easy that is, but that would be my only, I do want to ask them though, how we could put those on display for the community. But I kind of envision it being like a fun event. People can drop their scraps. They can get some information. Definitely we would be there. I'm happy to be there. Whoever else can be there. So that's kind of where we are. I have questions or thoughts.
is Ed available to comment right now?
Ed's
Here he
listening.
comes. He's listening.
Yeah.
So it's all about getting the food scraps into the dump. What are your thoughts? You said in email there's, certain things we can't have people without dump stickers going in. Are you on board with this idea of us collecting these food scraps? I think it would be marketed, if you will, as, Darien residents versus Whole Foods customers, but we're really not going to be screening who people are that are dropping their food scraps.
And
So,
you're talking about you're talking about a 3-hour period, right, Amanda? Like 9 to noon on a Saturday.
And then, so it's one, do you care? Are you going to take issue with that? And then the second is there a public works truck that can come get the food scraps after the program, or is that something you want us to do?
It, Amanda, it really just is determined on how you set it up, right? What time on Saturday? Is the truck, do I need to leave a truck there, or do I need to leave like a dumpster there with the bins inside them so I don't have to load them into something? How big are the bins? Those are things that will, determine how I set this up and how much room we're going to need over at Whole Foods. So we have a truck that can actually um, take a dumpster and put it on the back of the truck, and we could drive it over to the lot and bring it back. I mean, we can tie the bins off to that dumpster so they don't go anywhere. But we have to, I need to know how many you would need, how many you would fill, and then I have to get them from point A to point B and then off of that dumpster up at the transfer station. I'm willing to work with
Fantastic.
you on that. I just need some more information.
Okay, Whole
So we
Foods
can-
said they can even offer the big bins too. So if we had some bins, is that something that's liftable? Or I mean, I guess maybe we can talk about this logistic offline. We don't have to do it now, but more,
Yeah.
I guess I want to know, Ed, that you're that this is a opportunity. This is something that we can work with the Public Works on.
I'm willing to work with you on it. I do have to be cognizant of how I get that material from Whole Foods to the transfer station and then off of that truck onto the ground where those bins are now. My suggestion is to use the bins that are at the transfer station, that size,
Okay.
so that when we're done, we take them off, put them on the ground, and compost can pick them up with their truck and dump them into their truck. So, we need to make sure that we can get that part of the process completed.
Okay.
And I would
All right,
think, I mean, I don't know how many in a given morning you might actually, how many bins we actually fill, but I think we can offline sort of say, okay, the bins that people put their waste in, how many might we use on a Saturday morning between 9 and noon? Do we use 1 bin, 2 bins, 3 bins? And we can kind of go from there and just come up with and if we got to the point where we gotten to a limit, beyond our
shop.
wildest estimates, then that would be great, then we'll figure something out. But let's talk, can we kind of work those logistics with the store manager and you, Amanda, and keep Ed in the loop where it would come to how it get moved?
Can you give me an
Absolutely.
idea what dates you're looking at?
It would be Saturday, April 22nd.
Birthday.
Okay, what hours, Amanda, were you thinking? Morning, 8 to
Yeah, I
12?
was thinking 9 to noon.
Okay. All right, those are two good pieces of information. Okay.
Yeah, it would seem that we want to advertise it within our own community. If you haven't tried food scrap recycling, you can bring it there and leave it there. If you have a dump sticker, go to the dump. If you don't have access, you can bring it there. So I'm not sure that the waste part will be overwhelming. I think that the kits there, showing people, talking about it, that's always a really good thing. So
Exactly. And then in the article, Carolyn, you are referencing this, right?
No, we didn't have this worked out. I had to submit the article already, but Pam said that she would put it out on social media.
All right, so then my question becomes, do we want to have a piece very specific to this in the Darien neighbors?
I would maybe go to the newspaper as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe in the town newsletter. I think maybe in the town newsletter, on social media, both ours, the town's, and Pam's. Maybe in the patch. Those are like the best ways to get like timely information out, I think.
And I will give you one other, which leads to the other part of Earth Day activities, and then we can move on, I think, because we're about halfway through the meeting. Because of the Earth Day timing, the library had contacted Carolyn, and she and I spoke to some of the folks at the library that Carolyn referred me to as chair, and I showed them the presentation that we had done because they were asking if we could help them do some tabling on Earth Day. So Carolyn had said, yes, we have some of our postcards, we have a few things. They are going to purchase kits to raffle off after a program. They're going to show a film that day. So the library will have something going on that day too. So I think in how they publicize this, there may be some crossover. And the net of it was I showed them what we had communicated at the RTM meeting in January. And she asked that the committee, and I've agreed to do this, give that type of presentation on April 18. So that is 4 days before Earth Day. And so that will be published as well. So if we can come up with a strategy with the newsletter, with the Darien Times or the patch or whatever else, the library, I think there are ways that we can communicate this out, with the story out. And the library is very excited. They have their own sustainability committee now and a couple of really interested people. That particular day, they're going to collect things like, plastic wrap, or I suggested golf balls, different things that they can collect it. They're going to have some tables and information outdoors. So we keep the food out of the library, do that at Whole Foods, but I think we can overlap some of the communication.
Definitely.
So then I just wonder for an action item, whether it's reaching out to the newspapers, but part of the success of this will be how much the community is aware of it. So what steps
Absolutely.
do we want to take to either get in the newspaper or, I kind of hear you say bag Darien neighbors.
I just think you don't want, I would like to give Pam's putting a lot of effort in and willingness not to be working with two at the same time. I think we have other publications that have a
Yeah.
reach
So like,
from
what's the action item on that? Do we
work
maybe
between.
Carolyn and I, do you want to work on creating a one page that we would put on social media, or we could put in the newspaper? I haven't had a lot of great luck with the newspaper unless they've reached out on something.
I think we're better off with electronic versus print publications for this kind of thing. Yeah, we can definitely work on something. We'll do like a poster type thing, maybe on Canva or something to make it appealing. There are lots of other communities that have done things like this, so we can kind of maybe borrow some ideas. But yeah, we can work on that offline. We'll get the word out. There's not a problem with that.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we have to create an announcement with simple wording and
Graphics. We need
graphics.
graphics. We need something that's
And-
going to grab attention. Yeah.
And given that it's March 8th and that's April 22nd and the library is April 18th, we have several weeks, I think, to get it cleaned up
And
and
if I'm
ready to
not
go.
mistaken, Amanda, didn't Whole Foods say that they would also help with the publicity, that they would do a poster or put something up? So we've got their help as well.
Yep.
Thank you, Amanda and Carolyn.
Yeah,
This is really exciting. I guess I guess this is logistics. Do we have green bins? Do we need to look at how many green bins we have? If the library's going to purchase, I think 4 of them for their own purposes, we'd obviously, I don't know what's in inventory now. Ed, do you know, or can someone, how do we find out how many bins we've got?
Well,
Are they
I know
still
we
in
have
the-
two pallets, Carolyn, over at the garage, correct? Still, they haven't been put together, but we
So-
do have pallets over there.
yeah. I mean, I haven't done an inventory since the last time I was asked to bring some over to town hall. So I would have to go there and do an inventory and see how many we have. But yeah, so I can do that.
I'll help you, Carolyn.
Oh, good. Okay.
I love
And
bins.
the last thing on this list, and I don't know whether curbside compost could provide this to Whole Foods, but the other thing that's a huge issue with food scrap recycling is the the bags that the food goes in, and there are only certain ones that are acceptable. And there's a lot of, like, New Canaan found that out when they started their program as well. So I don't know whether Whole Foods carries or would carry the bags that are acceptable for food waste in our program. But it'd be interesting to find that out.
Yeah, I think they carry the BioBag brand.
Mhm.
And if so, they could put that on display too, because it's not just the kits. It's
Yeah.
you need to have the bags over and over again. And sometimes getting to town hall isn't possible. They may be more expensive there, but that may or may not be an issue too.
Yeah, they're definitely more expensive there.
Amanda, I was
Maybe
going to
he-
tell you too, I have a bunch of those big, they're originally used for horse feed, but these giant like plastic totes that we use for lawn and garden care that I can throw in the back of my car too. We could always, I mean, I could fit 4 or 5 in the back of my car and we
Yeah.
could just put compost in there and drive it over. It's not a big deal.
Okay,
I honestly don't think we're going to get enough tonnage to have to worry about getting a giant hauler over there. But,
Agreed.
as it'll be more informational, but that was just happy to do that.
Let's sort of
Thank
figure
you. That
that out
sounds-
offline and give Ed a request as, as far in advance as we can figure that out.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Item is 12:30, and I do see, of course, his face was there, and now his face is not there. But I do see that Mohan has joined the call. So welcome, Mohan, to the committee. Thank you for asking to volunteer. Oh, you're muted.
The technology person, I should know this, but yes. So
Yes.
thank you. It's my pleasure to be on the committee and do what I can.
I will let you listen for a bit if that's okay, and then if you want to, before we over, ask us any questions or give us a a little background on you, how would that be? Okay.
Yep, next. Thank you.
Well, as I was saying before, that you actually found out about us through our communication vehicle, which was absolutely fabulous. You never know if anybody's reading what's said about us. So the fact that you saw it and were willing to get involved, and we'll talk a little bit more about where your expertise is. Okay, so we were just about to talk about the swap shop, and it's under a short-term closure from the end of February to the first week in April for maintenance purposes and kind of regrouping over there on the property. And I know Dan wanted to make a brief comment at the beginning of this, given the conversation we had at the end of the last meeting. I know, Dan, if you want to make that briefly, but then I'd like to ask Ed to kind of explain to us how the maintenance stuff is going and what to-dos this committee can work on, whether it's some recycling training, workshop training for the volunteers and things of that nature. So Dan?
Well, thank you, Kathy. I would like to respond to Mrs. Bueno's accusation, without proof, by the way, that I profit from the swap shop. For the new members of our community who are not familiar with the Dulcetti family, we are a 5-generation family in town. I am a retired Xerox executive. My brother and I own and develop properties downtown. And for the record, I am not profiting from the swap shop. I have never taken a dime from the shop or profited from it.
Thank you. I know it was important for you to be able to make that statement. Putting that all aside, we had a chance to step back, do some maintenance, look at the space, figure out boxes. We'd had conversations about how to separate what could be recycled and not recycled and where it would go. And so I know it's been on Ed's to-do list to sort of work through some of the behind the scenes stuff. Can you give us an update?
Sure. I'm gonna warn you ahead of time at 12:45. I have to jump off of this call, and I apologize,
Okay.
but I'll do it quickly. So if there's any questions,
Yes.
I can answer
I'm
those too.
sorry,
So,
we could have put you
no,
at
no,
the
no, that's
beginning, Ed.
okay. That's okay. All important stuff here. So we did do a temporary shutdown. I do have some until April 3rd, and we do have some scheduled maintenance that we need to do over there with regards to, we saw some of the issues with the wall. We did some initial investigation, brought an engineer over. I want to do some cleanup on that wall first before we bring anybody back and put the stuff back inside the building. There's a couple locations that I want to seal up, without people hanging around trying to work around everyone. We did add some locks to the doors and things like that, so that you're aware of that. We will have the key available to the volunteers when needed. But the big thing was the code of conduct. I did get the code of conduct sign scope from you folks, and it's been ordered. We're supposed to get it in about a week or so, at which time we'll determine where to put it up on the building. We may decide to take one of them down that's out there. I think there's some redundancy, but I'll ask you folks before I do that and let you know when it's in. We're in the process of ordering some additional fluorescent yellow hats and shirts that say Swap Shop Volunteers. So our volunteers will be easily noticed and easily accessible if we need help. And I think the final piece, and then Kathy, I think you can jump in, and anyone from the committee can jump in if they like and expand on it. But our town administrator asked if we would bring the volunteers in to give them a little training session, and it could be full encompassing. It generally has to. They're generally looking for us to maybe show them, what should and shouldn't be recycled. What we should and shouldn't be keeping, whether it's broken, whether it's too large, things like that. Our expectations, and then talk about what the expectations are in dealing with the residents when they come in, dealing with other volunteers amongst themselves. I think that's important once in a while to step back and kind of draw a line of expectations for their conduct out there too. And I think they want to make sure that all the folks know that, this is important. This is an important piece of Darien. It's an important process that we use before things go up to the transfer station. And I think that if this is done correctly, I think maybe the volunteers will get a different insight to what's doing. Now, I know that Kate is very firm about certain things, so she's going to want these volunteers to attend this. I don't think she's going to make it optional. So we're going to try to pick a date before April 3rd to get the folks in here, maybe to the into the building here, maybe the auditorium, and we'll have a meeting with them. And Dan, I know those folks are folks that follow your lead. I would appreciate it that you would attend there also. I would expect that you would. So we're going to try to pick a date. I just haven't had time to go and narrow that down just yet. So that's pretty much where I'm standing. So, you're going to see some process over there right now. The weather really isn't great for what I want to do, so I have to wait for it to maybe warm up in a week or so. But that's pretty much where we are. I think I described it to you, Kathy, as maybe a way for us to hit the reset button out there, and it's a good opportunity to clean the building out a little bit and just get restarted. And I think it is much needed. I think is a good way for me to put it. So that's where I stand right now, and I'll give you 4 more minutes, and I'm sorry that I'll have to jump off.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a quick question, and that is, one of the things was we have a code of conduct, but there used to be a volunteer agreement where the volunteer would sign their name, and I would imagine in today's world you'd have an emergency contact on it, and it might say, we follow the code of conduct, we park here. I mean, we've worked on that over and over again and not created a new one. Do you want, when we do have a draft, is there someone that should be looking at that, or you just don't want to go there?
I think that, first of all, I think that it's a great tool to have, mainly the contact number, because it's always good in case something does happen out there. But to always maybe put something in writing that these folks understand. I'm going to defer to Dan a little bit more. He probably knows the people better. But I mean, if I was a volunteer out there and I read this and I had no objection, I really, I'm volunteering, right?
Right.
I probably wouldn't have an issue signing it. But I can't speak for the people that volunteer for us. And
Okay.
I will defer to you folks as a committee to see if that's a step you want to take and present a draft to the town administrator, see how she feels about that. How's that sound?
That's a good idea.
Okay, so Dan, you and I, since I have the draft, you
We
can
can
take a
work
look
on
at
that,
it,
surely.
you can edit it and then forward it over to the folks that need it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Ed? I guess I have one more if no one else is going to raise their hand. So as part of this, we might be able to rearrange some of the things so that there's adequate places for things that have to get tossed or recycled so that people know that there's a cardboard bin and that there's a glass bin, or that then the logistics of how that moves is probably just like we talked about at Whole Foods. How do we get it from point A to point B? But
I'm
is that
looking,
part of your vision?
yeah, I'm looking for some, trying to find some bins to put on one of the sides of the swap shop
Yeah.
so that, instead of it ending up in the hopper, as everyone calls it, we do continue to recycle it to a metal bin, to the cardboard bin, and to the plastic bin.
Thank
So
you.
I am looking for some, I don't say large, but some medium size, something that we can handle, that I
Yep.
can put in Keith's loader, and he can take up there and dump himself without possible injuring himself or anything like that.
Fabulous. And because clearly, I'm going to sound like a broken record this year. We have to keep modeling the behavior that we have to separate our stuff, because that's where we're at with trash in town right now. Anybody have any questions for Ed? Because he's off in
I have
1
one
minute.
question real quick. I know with COVID, hours changed. What do you think the hours will be in April?
Currently, I want to go back to the way they were before I shut it down.
So that was 9 to 1. Is it 9 to 1, Dan?
8:30 to 1.
8:30. So not to 2 o'clock.
And then Saturdays, 8:30 to 12.
And I mean, honestly, I think it's been working out okay. It
Been
does
working
give me a
fine.
little extra time to clean up before or after. We're not running into that last minute crowd coming through the gate, like we used to. So I think it's gotten a little bit better. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's gotten better.
I would love to see the Saturdays go till 1 if that were possible, because there are some people who don't get out before noon. I think that's a little, that's me. But if that's not something the volunteer, if that's something over time and over the summer the volunteers would be willing to do, maybe we can work on that later.
We'll talk about it. It's a long time for Saturday.
I get it. I get it. Okay. Ed, thank you. I know you said you have to drop, and I see 12:45.
I appreciate that. Thank you, all you folks. I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Hi, Ed. Okay. 15 minutes left. We talked a little bit about communications, but I want to do that, and then maybe Mahan can introduce himself, and we can maybe put some names to the last item on the agenda, which we've kind of been working on all along, which is some of our efforts for 2023. So, Carolyn, I don't know that there's anything new with talking to the town, but I guess what I'm thinking from you and Amanda is putting something together to show the town over the next 6 weeks, the things that we're going to be doing and announcing, just so she knows and she can plug it into her dates. I mean, we've got the April 18th, the April 22nd, the magazine.
Just so you know, Kathy, when I put things on social media that I think are relevant for her to know, I always tag her. So that it comes to her attention. But I can also, email something too, just in case she misses it.
Or maybe
that's
just a hey from you, or if you'd rather come from me, I'm happy. Like, hey, these are the things that are happening between now and Earth Day to keep on your radar. Okay.
Yeah, either or.
Okay. And
Happy
we
to
really
help.
were talking about the external publications with the Darien magazine that's going on, and we'll figure out through the press releases how to publicize some of the events, all right, that are coming on. Do all of you, if any of you do not follow on your social media platform or not, Carolyn, just can you repeat? It's the same name everywhere, right?
Yeah. It's a Darien Recycling Center. And, I think, I really put more than just recycling information there, because we've sort of evolved to a sustainability committee from what was originally just like a transfer station advisory committee. But we voted that we had discussed this a few years ago and decided that we wanted to keep the same name. But if you just on it's three places: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's Darien Recycling Center. And if you could follow it and like and possibly share things when you think it's appropriate, that would be appreciated because that just, gets more eyeballs on the post. So there's that.
Thank you. And I think that that is how Mohan knew that we were in existence. So can I
Oh, is
ask
that
you
right?
maybe to Mohan, would you like to take just a couple minutes and introduce yourself and how, kind of why you knocked on our door? And that maybe is good to know before we just look at what I think are sort of the 5 areas we're working on in the next 6 months to a year and where you might be interested in plugging in. So welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Mohan Hanumanta. My wife is Suma. My daughter is Suki. She is a junior in high school. We are living in Darien since 2014, although we have been living in Connecticut since 2019. We spent 10 years across the coast. The longest was in Milford. We lived 10 years. So I work for a company called AXA. We're an insurance company. I'm a tech executive. I run their technology organization for corporate IT. I have a global team, roughly 300 people, manage a large team. So I have management, operational, and technology expertise. So wherever I can lend. And I have spent the last 2 years studying sustainability at Yale. So when I came out of the program, I was trying to figure out what do I do for myself. I have this education. Certainly, I was looking for a career pivot, but I can't do it now because my daughter is in high school. Got to give a few more years. So then I said, okay, fine, I can't do the career pivot, but then how can I apply my education? And also, I got plenty of time because I'm not studying for college anymore. So you know, lo and behold, I get this email from our, first selectman. It says, well, went through a lot of stuff. I do read the town stuff. And she said, well, we need volunteers. I said, okay, where can I volunteer? Certainly, if it is a sustainability area, that's good. So I went through the process and here I am. So I can help you with anything you need. I'm also an engineer by education. So we will talk about electric vehicles, anything to the engineering or operations I can help. But more importantly, I would love to know each of you so that at least I know what you're working on. And if I can help with anything minimally possible, you have my support. That's it.
Thank you very, very much. I think maybe we can, at the beginning of the next meeting, schedule in just once again a reminder of who everybody is with their, their 30-second elevator pitch would be a good thing to do. And I know that it's 12:50 and we have 10 minutes, and which is not enough to plan every activity for the remainder of the year. And we've been talking about a strategic document, and I sort of gave up a little bit on that this month. And want to go back to something I said at the beginning about the mini bottle fee. So according to the town, there is some money that is available, if asked for, to be used for waste management, waste reduction stuff. So I've got that $3,000 in the head with maybe 1,500 more coming, that as we try to look at the things that I put on the agenda, that I think were kind of the 5 things that kept coming up in all of our strategy plans. Expanding food scrap recycling, investigating leaf blowers was one suggestion, holding sustainability events, which is like the library event and the Whole Foods event, collaborating with schools, and then the whole EV thing, which we know is out there with some of the grant money for school buses. We know our town is going to is renegotiating their contract this year. And we know there's an education program on EV infrastructure for planning commissions now. So there's kind of 5 areas we're working on. And I'm wondering if anyone has, any comments about anything. I did see Norwalk has, through their ordinance committee held a public hearing on the gas leaf blowers. So people are working on that, and we're not anywhere near having a presentation to give to the selectmen, but that's one thing that I know we've talked about. And I'm just kind of throwing it out to kind of going around the room. I'll start, Cliff, maybe with you. You're in the middle of my screen. Or which of these areas, like we all know kind of what you've been working on, but what things are you interested in working on this year in the next, 3 to 6 months, as we have a full crew right now? I'm putting
Well,
you on the
the-
spot, but we don't
No,
have
no,
much
that's
time
fine.
except to
That's
say, hey,
fine.
these are the things I'm interested in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm definitely interested in a leaf blower thing. I'm definitely interested in expanding our food scrap program.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the two things. But if there were a subcommittee on the swap shop or something, I'd be interested in helping with that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what's going to happen to get ready for whatever would happen at Kate Bush, the town administrator's volunteer meeting, that someone could work with Dan and kind of help plan that and stuff going on. So that's cool, Cliff. And Carolyn, I think we'd probably have to say Carolyn, because so I should maybe not allow you to say more than two things.
Well, I mean, you know that the food scrap program is what has been my focus for the past
Absolutely.
actually 5 years, because it was a
Yeah.
year of research. And I would really love to be able to try to expand that into the schools, or at least
Yeah.
explore it, because I think it's happening everywhere around the state, and we're kind of behind, and it could make a huge difference, and people want it. Kids want it, and they know, and I just think the time is ripe to really try to spend some more time looking into that.
I think our events, thank you, Carolyn, our events at the library and at Whole Foods provide a possible way to get a little bit of enthusiasm, whether we have something that people could send to their school administrators, or a way to, obviously we know a survey would come back with the answer, no, they're not doing it, but maybe there's some way in those events to gain a little interest from other families in the community to help us with that as well. We have a chance to talk to people
That
at
would
the
be
library.
great. That would be great.
Poke the bear a little bit, maybe. Here's a letter you can send
Right.
to your principal or your whatever. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you. And I think the sustainability events, we sort of all really work on those. That isn't really a category, and some of them will be
Right.
important to, some of us have time or availability or expertise. So kind of, it's really the four that I mentioned, plus then the swap shop. So going
Is
around,
there public
Christina,
comments?
no, I did
Are
not
they going to
schedule
be
public
public
comments.
comments?
No, I did not schedule public comments for today's meeting, Ms. Bueno. I'm sorry, we had a very busy agenda, and last meeting we agreed to add public comment at your request, and we have 5 minutes left till we shut off, and I still need to hear from Christine, Amanda, and Mohan. Anything that you need to communicate, that there are the emails and the town administrators and Ed, that we do hear you when you speak.
Kathy, we
Christine.
also still need to approve the minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So we're going to do that. I would like to hear from Christine and Amanda on the areas, these big areas that we're working on. If you have
I'd
more
say
interest in some of the others.
collaborate with schools and sustainability events.
Okay, so that's Amanda.
For me, I'd say the food scrap recycling, the sustainability events. Definitely very interested in helping a lot more with the swap shop. And everything else I'm interested in, it's just not on the forefront.
Yeah, and I think that's it. If we're going to divide and conquer here, we have 7 of us now that can all kind of.
And given that I have a
on-
graduating senior, I'm kind of like kicking schools to the curb at the moment. So
Yeah,
like,
you're
focused on
like,
college.
bye-bye.
Yeah.
And
Need
you're
to
also a
mentally
busy
check
mom.
out of DHS for a while. But
Okay, and Mohan, we're going to throw you on the spot. It was the kind of the list at the end of the agenda, but the food scraps, looking at what other towns are doing with leaf blowers, collaborating with schools, the infrastructure stuff that's happening with EVs all around us and fleets, the swap shop, and you may have a brand new idea that we haven't even put on the list. So you get your
Well, I mean, if there is anything to do
instant
with
thought.
So I was going to say, if we are doing anything with renewables, the solar, electric vehicles, anything to do with technology, you can assign me. Not that I don't like other stuff. You can assign me if you guys need. Okay. If you need any capacity in any areas, put my name and I will find time.
I think the EV stuff is a great place for you. A lot of the capacity and solar work was done. We did some work in benchmarking and got some Energy Star certifications last in the sustainable CT certification. And Ed's building plan with solar, I'm not sure where it is. You can always have a conversation with him at some point in time. It sort of fell lower on the list this year because the trash and the food and the EVs being budgeted for with a lot of money that's out there right now for those things have kind of bubbled up. But by no means was the solar and the energy not one of the big, it was one of the biggest efforts in the years past, I think Carolyn would say. So
Yeah,
my
and
apologies for leaving it off the list.
I can offline, Mohan, if I get your email, I can bring you up to speed on like what we've done, because there are 3 municipal buildings that we did put solar on, in addition to some of the schools, but 3 municipal.
I will send a general email to everyone so you have Mohan's welcoming.
Great.
Okay.
Kathy, just while I have another minute here, I had a fantastic conversation with Kathy. I think we spent 30 minutes. That was great. If I can, maybe I can catch up with all of you, maybe 5-10 minutes. Is that okay? Or just
What I will
over-
do is send the email around and then you all
Yeah.
can talk however you want to. That would be
Yes,
great.
that's awesome. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
All righty. Okay, so that before we adjourn, we did not approve the minutes of the February meeting, which Christine had sent and then sent revised. Are there any comments on the minutes? Adjustments
I
to
just
the
changed
adjustments?
the date from 2022 to 2023. It was
Oh,
just a typo.
good catch.
Thank you.
That was the
Okay.
only suggestion I had. So I'll make them, unless anyone else has any, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 8th, 2023 meeting.
I second it.
Anybody all in favor
Aye.
that was there?
Aye.
And that would be unanimous. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I believe we concluded this month's business at a rapid pace. I'm sorry, I feel like nobody got a chance to dig deep into anything, but there's a lot going on. And Susan, you're on mute. I want to thank you for coming and listening. And I guess I have one question for you. I'll put you on the spot at the end. If we're doing some planning and working with the volunteers, Dan, do you think Susan could
Oh, absolutely.
kind of
Susan
give
and I
some
work
a
quite a
little?
bit together. No problem. Hi,
Yeah,
Susan.
You could call on.
Dan was
Okay.
at the meeting at the initial meeting at the Sugar Bowl where Reese and I sort of hatched the idea of a swap shop, and he took it to Yvonne Klein, and the rest is history.
So your perspective might be nice as part of a kind of a volunteer celebration. It is 10 years that it's been open, I think. So maybe we can
More
turn
than
this
10 years.
more than 10 years.
More
We
than
can
10.
turn
I
this.
have the photos of when it went up. Yes, I thought I'd reach out to Kate Bush and ask her when this meeting is going to be, and
Okay.
if she would keep me in the loop. So
Fabulous.
thank you so much for all you're doing for the town. It's terrific.
Well, we have big shoes to fill, Susan. I know people like you that did stuff for
Not
years.
at
So
all. Not at all.
okay, well, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It is 1:01. That's about as good as we can get.
That's
I will
awesome.
turn off the recording.